Hi, my name is Laura Shoba and I'm doing a book review on Appetite for America. This book is about Fred Harvey, the man, and the company and how they came to be. Fred Harvey, the man, came to America from Europe where he got his first job in the restaurant business in New York City. He eventually found himself in Leavenworth, Kansas, where he was able to get a job selling tickets and becoming a traveling salesman. Through this job, Fred was able to learn a lot of things about business in America. One important skill was how to negotiate. One of his friends once said about him, "You should have seen Fred when he was building up. He used to ask for everything. He asked and kept on asking, and finally he got it." To him, this was how business was done in America, and it brought him very far in his future endeavors. One of his endeavors was partnering with George Pullman, who employed him to serve food on his George Pullman sleepers. Fred suspected there was money to be made if he could just figure out a way to deliver palatable food with fair prices. And to say he was successful at this would be an understatement. Now I'd like to go through kind of some of the main points that I think made Fred Harvey, the man in the company, what they were today. The first of these is his desire to expand his eating houses. Once William Strong became the general manager at the Santa Fe, Fred Harvey was there the next day inquiring how he could expand west with the railroad. In order to do this, he had to hire a big city chef by the name of William Phillips, and together they began inventing the standards of cuisine efficiency and hygiene Fred Harvey would impose throughout the West. According to Kate Nelson at the New Mexico History Museum, Fred Harvey and the Santa Fe Railroad grew up together. As the tracks were laid through cities, a Harvey house appeared. In order to do this, Fred Harvey also invented large-scale centralized purchasing. His customers were getting used to eating beef for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so Fred essentially had to place a big order of beef in order to serve all the customers at his eating houses in the West. And with this single order, he dramatically improved dining west of the Mississippi River and also introduced large-scale centralized purchasing. Next is his inspections and maintaining the standard. Fred would do surprise inspections at his eating houses, and his staff were supposed to live up to the standard. And even though he kept repeating this, they were actually inventing the standard. He wanted there to be a Fred Harvey way of doing everything. He had rules for everything. He had fundamentals. One of his employees once said that he was a crank, and Fred's response to this, "Well, of course I'm a crank. It is our business to please cranks. Anybody can please a gentleman." Next is the Harvey girls. Fred Harvey, on the suggestion of one of his general managers, replaced all the black waiters in his eating houses with female single waitresses from Kansas, and according to feminist scholars, this decision would be seen as a crucial turning point for American women. Of course, these women had to maintain the standard, and they also had rules to follow. They lived in the dormitory, they had a chaperone, they had to be in bed by certain times, they had to sign a contract that they wouldn't marry within 6 months of working at the company. Next is Fred Harvey, the name. The boys decided not to acknowledge any family succession, so the company is actually called Fred Harvey. The railroad would continue advertising meals by Fred Harvey at the restaurants and hotels. Menus and other printed material would make a point of noting your hosted Fred Harvey. Little did they know, but Fred Harvey would become the first country's national chain of restaurants, hotels, and beyond, stretching from Cleveland to California. Keeping that name also made people think Fred Harvey was well and taking care of them. According to Patrick Whitehurst from the Grand Canyon News, the idea was just offer perfect service to people and for them not to think much more about it, except for Fred Harvey meant excellent food, perfect service, being able to get off the crummiest train ride that you possibly had, and walking into luxury and all the comforts of home. That's all they wanted people to think. In order to have that very simple thing happen, they had to create a very complicated business full of incredibly devoted and loyal employees over many generations. Additionally, according to Patrick Kidd from the University of Pennsylvania, the emphasis on standardization, a complex geographically tiered management system, and development of brand identity through architecture and strong corporate image were all early concepts employed by Fred Harvey. And what kind of helped keep this going was that Fred Harvey's will said that nothing could be changed for 10 years after he died, which I think was another crucial turning point for the company. The point I would like to talk on is the Indian department at the Alvarado, which had Indians there making their crafts for when the train stopped. According to Kate Nelson from the New Mexico History Museum, the company and its New Mexico establishment served as the stage on which people such as mariculture fashioned an authentic tourist experience through architecture and interior design, while Schweisinger helped drive the direction of Native American arts as an industry, which is consistent with the author's stance. Now, when you think of Native American jewelry, what you think of, the silver and turquoise jewelry, actually came from Fred Harvey at the Alvarado. Additionally, according to Patrick Kidd from the University of Pennsylvania, the romantic aesthetic employed in the Harvey hotels and houses, their architecture and interior design was essentially a tool in the marketing of the Southwest as a potential tourist destination. So Fred Harvey also had a hand in creating the Southwest style that we think of today. So based on the examples above, it is clear that Fred Harvey was the founding father of the American service industry and created one of the first nationally recognized American brands, and that brand was Fred Harvey.